Have you ever known that something in your life needed to change, but continued living with it because it felt even more frightening? Maybe it was a relationship, a job, your health, your finances, or perhaps it was the way you had started seeing yourself. Some of the decisions that changed my life did not feel brave when I made them. They felt frightening. They felt uncomfortable. And some of them felt like a loss. But when I look at the woman I am today, I can trace much of my growth back to 5 difficult decisions that I had to make. Choosing myself, believing I was capable of more, taking my health seriously, becoming more careful about the voices I allowed to influence me, and taking responsibility for my financial future. These are personal stories, but this conversation is not only about me. As you listen, I want you to think about your own life. Where are you staying because living feels frightening? Where are you waiting to feel completely ready before you start or take action? And where have you allowed someone else's opinion to influence what you believe is possible for you? I'm Judith Indu. On this channel, we have honest conversations about building wealth, growing in confidence, making better decisions, and creating a life we genuinely love. If those are the conversations you have been looking for, I want you to subscribe and become part of my community. You can also follow me on my other platforms so we can stay connected. Now let's talk about the 5 decisions that changed my life and what they may teach you about changing yours. Choosing myself. Have you ever known that something was over but struggled to accept that it was finally really over? That was my marriage. My ex-husband initiated our divorce. We became legally divorced, but the divorce did not immediately end our relationship. He convinced me that marriage was in the heart, not on paper. And so because of that, I stayed and I believed him. So although we were legally divorced, I continued living with him and functioning as though we were still married. I knew the relationship was no longer healthy for either of us. I knew we were holding on to something that was hurting both of us. But knowing that something is unhealthy and finding the courage to leave are 2 different things. Part of me was holding on to the idea of our family, and part of me still hoped that perhaps the legal divorce did not have to mean the real end of the relationship. So for almost 2 years after the divorce, I remained with him. And looking back, I can see that I was caught between 2 realities. On paper, the marriage ended, but emotionally, I was still trying to live as though it had not. Walking away was difficult for me, but accepting that it was truly over was even harder for me. Sometimes I know that we remain in situations not because we are unaware of the truth, but because we are not yet emotionally prepared to accept what the truth requires of us. The familiar pain feels safer than the unfamiliar future, and I get it. You're unhappy, you're losing yourself, but you also know that the history, routine, and you may still love the person. When I finally left completely, I felt grief and fear. I also felt guilt, but also I felt relief. And sometimes relief tells you what you were not yet ready to admit. It showed me how much emotional weight I had been carrying. So choosing myself did not mean that I stopped caring about him. It did not mean that the years we shared meant nothing. And it did not mean that I believed everything was his fault. It meant I finally accepted that continuing the relationship was not good for either of us. That decision taught me to ask a question I still use to this day. What is staying costing me? What is it costing your peace, your confidence, your health, your future, or your ability to recognize yourself? Living has a cost, but staying has a cost too. And sometimes choosing yourself is not about rejecting another person. Choosing yourself sometimes is simply about really accepting reality and refusing to continue participating in something that is harming both of you. That was one of the hardest decisions of my life, but it taught me that peace sometimes begins with the truth we have been avoiding, because the truth will set you free. Now, on to my second decision, which is believing that I was capable of more. Leaving that relationship required me to believe that another life was possible for me. But that belief did not begin with me. In fact, it began with my father. My father believed deeply in education. More importantly, he believed in me. He saw something in me before I fully saw it in myself. He believed in me before there was evidence. Parents, you need to take this seriously. Before the degrees, before the career, before the business, before I had accomplishments that could prove my father was right, he believed in me. And his belief gave me permission to imagine that my circumstances did not have to determine my future, the power of parenting. And eventually his voice became my own. But believing you are capable of more does not mean that you will always feel prepared. Sometimes you have to act before confidence arrives. I learned that lesson very clearly in 2015. At the time, I was still learning to braid hair professionally because life was difficult for me. That was all I could do. One day, my boss was away and I was the only person working in the salon. A woman came in and asked for goddess braids. The problem was that I had never completely done any hairstyle on my own. I depended on the expert. I cleaned the store, opened, closed. I did not know how to do it well. I was honest with her. So I told her, well, I'm still learning, but I can try. But I decided to try. And let me tell you, the hairstyle did not come out well. In fact, it was very messy. The client was understandably unhappy. She refused to pay for the service and she asked me to reimburse her for the hair extensions. So my first solo attempt at goddess braids did not make me money. It cost me money. Thankfully, my boss and I, and even the lady, after a while, we were able to eventually laugh about the whole thing. But that experience taught me two lessons I have never forgotten. The first was that confidence does not always come before action. Sometimes confidence is the result of action. I had watched other people braid. I had practiced. But eventually, I had to put my own hands in someone's hair and try. The result was not good, but I had done something I had never done before, and that is it. And strangely, even though I failed, I became more confident because now I knew what the experience felt like. Now I knew that at least I can try, and I knew what I needed to improve. Failure had given me information. The second lesson I learned from that experience was about responsibility. Being willing to begin before you feel ready does not mean becoming comfortable delivering poor quality work. Once someone trusts you with their money, time, appearance, or business, you have a responsibility to take that trust seriously. Otherwise, you will spend your time issuing refunds, repeating work, correcting mistakes, and damaging your reputation. That experience gave me a principle I still live by to this day. Be willing to begin before you feel perfect, but keep learning until the quality of your work matches the responsibility you've accepted. There's a difference between beginning and being careless. In that case, I was a beginner. A beginner makes mistakes, learns, and improves. A careless person keeps repeating the same mistake over and over and over because they refuse to grow. I eventually became very good at doing hair. Not because every hairstyle was perfect in the beginning, but because I wanted to learn. And certainly not because every customer felt or left happy. I became better because I did not allow one embarrassing experience to determine what I could become. My starting point was never meant to become my destination, and neither is yours. You may not be excellent the first time you try something. You may feel embarrassed, like I did when I did the ladies' hair. You may be corrected. You may even lose money. but one honest attempt can teach you more than years spent waiting for the perfect moment. Now, that was my second decision. My third was taking my health seriously. Confidence was not the only area of my life that I needed to pay attention. There was something else I knew I had been avoiding, which was my health. At one point, my weight reached approximately 215 pounds. I already knew I had gained a significant amount of weight. I could see the changes. I could feel my clothes becoming tighter. I could feel them. And I knew I needed to make healthier choices. But seeing 215 pounds on the scale frightened me. That number became a wake-up call. It was not only about appearance. The number itself was not the complete story. What frightened me was what it represented. It reflected habits I had allowed to develop over time and how far I had moved away from intentionally caring for myself. Changes like that happen gradually. You become busy. You put work first. You care for everyone else. You tell yourself, you will begin next week. Then next week becomes next month. You choose convenience because you're tired. And eventually, the habits you keep postponing become the life you are living. Seeing that number forced me to stop pretending. I had unlimited time to deal with my health. I had responsibilities. I had a daughter. I had dreams. I wanted to live a long and active life. But wanting that future was not enough. My daily decisions had to support it. Taking my health seriously was not one dramatic transformation. It was a series of smaller decisions. Being more intentional about what I ate, moving my body, paying attention to my portions, learning discipline, understanding that caring for my health was not vanity, it was responsibility. Your health affects how you work, how you sleep. It even affects how you parent, how you think, how much energy you have, and how fully you can participate in the life you're working so hard to build. Health is not defined by one body type or one number on a scale. That's not what I'm saying. But honesty matters. You have to be willing to examine the habits that support your future and the habits that are quietly working against it. That number frightened me, but it also woke me up. And sometimes the truth that frightens you is the same truth that finally moves you. So now, on to my fourth decision, which is refusing to let other people define me. As I began making changes in my life, I learned that growth does not always make everyone around you happy. And at the time, I was working in a hair salon, but I had also returned to school and was completing an internship in an office. I was trying to transition into a different professional future, and there was a lot of jealousy and gossip in the salon. People could laugh with you one moment, and then in the next, they would try to tear you down. There was an older woman at the salon whom I would call M, just for the sake of history and respect. One day, we were all having a normal, playful conversation. I remember this very clearly. The women were joking about clothes, perfumes, and stepping up our appearances. M told me that I needed to step up my game with the way I dressed and the perfume I wore. So I casually mentioned that a woman at the office where I was doing my internship had recently complimented me and told me that I smelled good. It was a small comment. It was not bragging. I was simply joining the conversation. And I was being honest. But M suddenly became very angry. She accused me of trying to show off because I now worked in an office. Then she told me that I was nothing. She said I was trying to act important, as if I no longer belonged to the salon. But what I really was a salon woman. And then she repeated that I was nothing. That moment stayed with me. Not because I believed her, but because I understood what she was trying to do. She was using where I was at that moment to define the limits of who I was allowed to become in her mind. Yes, I worked in a salon, but I was also a student. I was an intern. I was a mother. even a friend. I was a woman trying to build a different future. Being a salon professional was part of my story. It was never the complete definition of me. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with working in a salon. Hair gave me income. It gave me valuable skills. It helped me serve people. It helped me build confidence. The insult was not really about salon work. The insult was the suggestion that I had no right to become anything beyond the identity she had assigned to me. That day taught me that not everyone who is close to you will celebrate your growth. Some people are comfortable with you as long as you remain in a role they recognize. They may feel connected to you while you're struggling. But when you begin learning, entering new spaces, or receiving recognition, your growth may make them uncomfortable. That discomfort is theirs to manage. Your responsibility is not to shrink so that someone else can remain comfortable with who you used to be. But choosing your circle carefully does not mean surrounding yourself with people who constantly praise you. Absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. You need people who will correct you, people who are honest. You need accountability. Remember those goddess braids? I clearly needed correction. But there is a difference between correction and humiliation. Correction helps you improve. Humiliation tries to convince you that you have no value. The right people can tell you that your work needs improvement without telling you that you are nothing. They can challenge you without resenting your progress. And they do not require you to remain small in order to maintain the relationship. That experience taught me to become more careful about whose words I carried with me, because not every opinion deserves a permanent home in my mind. You cannot stop people from speaking about you, but you can decide whether their words become your identity. Now, on to my final decision. The final decision came after another painful experience. In 2018, I was fired from my job. Losing a job affects more than your income. It can affect your confidence. It can affect your identity, your sense of security. It can leave you feeling rejected and uncertain about what comes next. But being fired forced me to confront something I had not fully considered before. I had placed too much of my financial security in the hands of one employer. I was working, I was responsible, but working hard and being financially secure are not always the same thing. An employer can make a decision that changes your entire financial reality in one day. That does not mean we should live in fear, and it does not mean that everyone needs to quit their job or become an entrepreneur. It means that employment should not replace financial preparation. After being fired, I really began thinking differently about money. Not only earning it, but saving it, investing it, developing additional skills, building assets, creating options, and learning how money works beyond receiving a paycheck and paying bills. Because before then, that was exactly what I was doing. I decided that one paycheck could no longer be my entire financial plan. A job is a source of income, but one job by itself is not a complete financial security or strategy. Financial security is built through preparation, savings, investing, managing your money or managing your debt, skills that remain valuable beyond one position, and the ability to create alternatives before you desperately need them. I still believe in building a strong career. I believe in doing excellent work for your employer, and I do those things. But I also believe that your employer may provide your current income while you remain responsible for building your financial future. You may not be able to transform your life or your finances overnight, but you can begin. You can look honestly at where your money is going. You can begin saving something. You can learn about investing. You can develop a skill. You can explore an additional source of income. Small financial decisions may not feel powerful in the moment, but listen to me. Over time, they create options for you. And having options allows you to make decisions from strength instead of desperation. Those are my 5 decisions. When I look back at these 5 decisions, they appear very different. One involved a marriage, one involved a failed hairstyle, one involved a number on a scale, one involved words spoken in a saloon, and one involved losing a job for me to finally really realize that the time was right for me to get serious. But they were all connected by the same lesson. The life you want is built one intentional decision at a time. So choosing myself required me to accept what I already knew. Believing I was capable of more required me to act before I felt completely ready. Taking my health seriously required me to stop avoiding what frightened me. Protecting my confidence required me to stop allowing other people to define the limits of my life, and taking ownership of my finances required me to stop confusing employment with complete financial security. None of these decisions immediately solved everything. And making an intentional decision does not mean that everything that happens to us is our fault. No, life can be unfair. People can disappoint us. Circumstances can change without our permission. But even when we cannot control everything that happens, we still have some responsibility for what we do next. So I want to leave you with one question. What decision have you been postponing because you are waiting to feel completely certain before you start or take? Maybe you need to accept that something has ended. Maybe you need to begin before you feel ready. Maybe you need to confront something about your health. Maybe you need to stop carrying words spoken by someone who could not see your future. Or maybe you need to take the first step towards greater financial security. You do not have to change your entire life today, but you may need to make one honest decision. In my next video, we are going deeper into one of the lessons from today. How to start before you feel ready without being careless. Because waiting for confidence may be the very thing keeping you stuck. If this conversation gave you something to think about, subscribe, follow, share, and comment to this channel, and follow me on my other platforms so we can continue growing together. Please share this video with someone who may need to hear it. And I genuinely want to hear from you, really. And I'll respond to every comment. Which of these 5 decisions connected most with where you are in your life today, and why? Leave your answer in the comments. I read them because I want this channel to feel like a real conversation, not simply a place where I speak and you listen. I'm Judith Indu. Build your wealth, build your confidence, build a life you love. I'll see you in the next video.